Oh, good morning. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner, all things health related for women. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist in New York City, Midtown Manhattan, and I'm bringing on the Facebook live streams daily presentations on health related issues for women, tips, tricks, and homeopathic regimens to treat common ailments, and I'm presenting on a regular basis information about ourselves, our bodies, and our health. Thank you for joining me. So, before I get started, I just want to remind everyone we have this Facebook page. We also have the YouTube page. It's called GYN Corner. Please check out the YouTube page. GYN Corner, like, subscribe, comment. Please post questions and any topics for ideas, questions, and topics for presentations. I'd appreciate it. I've also started a podcast. It's called Surprise GYN Corner. And the podcast is currently available on Anchor and on Spotify. We got approved for Apple iTunes, so it should be available on Apple iTunes this week, Friday, and Friday is August 9th. So this on or after August 9th, please check out Apple iTunes for GYN Corner or Spotify Anchor now. Sorry. So I've been presenting for the last week or so about polycystic ovarian syndrome, polycystic ovarian disease, which is a collection of health issues and disease manifestations primarily dependent on three aspects. The first aspect is anovulation, which means irregular abnormal menstrual cycles. The second is hyperandrogenism, which means increased male pattern or testosterone type of hormone response, so increased male pattern hair growth, hair loss, and acne. And the last is insulin resistance. Sorry. Insulin resistance is a pre-diabetic or a diabetes tendency propensity. So please check out the previous presentations, especially on the YouTube because they're nicely classified, or on the podcast if you'd like detailed information on all of that background. I have to keep these presentations short, so less than 10 minutes, because the Facebook has been timing me out and deleting my presentation. I gave this presentation earlier on the Facebook live stream and it cut me off around 14 minutes or so. So I'm going to try to keep this to less than 10 minutes so I don't get timed out. So today I'll be speaking on the insulin resistance aspect. I spoke about the anovulation treatment, and I already spoke about the hyperandrogenism treatment. So today is the insulin resistance treatment. So insulin resistance means that your body is not responding to normal levels of insulin, which act to keep blood sugar levels after a meal within a normal range. The testing for insulin resistance is a fasting insulin and a fasting glucose level. Fasting insulin levels should be low because you're not eating when you're asleep or when you first wake up, or fasting means you haven't eaten for at least 10 hours. So the insulin level should be low. If your insulin levels are elevated, and it's a fasting insulin test, that means that your body is constantly circulating higher and higher levels of insulin because your body is not responding to normal insulin levels to keep the glucose down. So it has to keep pushing higher and higher levels to try to maintain a normal glucose level. And if your glucose fasting level is still elevated, then that means that your body is totally not responding to normal levels. It's resistant to insulin, and you have frequent elevated glucose levels, which is damaging for our tissue and organs. The third test is a hemoglobin A1C, which is a test which looks at a long-range picture of the relationship between insulin and glucose to see if it's been a normal relationship or an abnormal one where the glucose is constantly or frequently elevated and the insulin is working overtime to try to maintain normal levels. Now, the go-to treatment for this is metformin, which is a diabetic medication. Metformin is a pill which is taken in order to, one, decrease glucose levels, but more importantly, it looks like it acts to increase your body's tissues' sensitivity to insulin. So it tries to reverse that insulin resistance by making your tissues more responsive to insulin. And it works very nicely. Sorry. So when one takes metformin, it increases the ability of your body to keep the blood sugar levels low at a lower insulin level. And it also looks like that decreased or that increased insulin sensitivity of the tissues also helps to decrease the anovulation issue. So it increases the ovulatory pattern. So women who are on metformin, it looks like they have more regular cycles than women who aren't on metformin with the polycystic ovarian syndrome. Because it increases the tissue sensitivity to insulin, it also decreases the constant circulating elevated glucose levels. And when you decrease insulin and you decrease constant glucose levels, you also decrease weight gain. So women with the PCOS who are on metformin, they have more regular cycles, they have better fasting glucose blood sugar levels, and they also lose weight because their insulin levels aren't elevated. That's the mainstream treatment for the insulin resistance aspect. Another option, which I've given multiple patients over the last few years, is instead of taking the medication, or at least in addition to the medication, to decrease the frequency that you eat. You'll find a lot about intermittent fasting on the YouTube channel. So intermittent fasting is just a state where you're not eating frequently. You try to increase the time frame between when you eat. So years ago, when everyone was working on farms or on mines, they would get up before the sun rose and they wouldn't eat breakfast at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. They'd do their morning work or chores and they'd eat breakfast later between 9 and 12 o'clock. They call it supper. If you do that on a regular basis, that will increase the time that your body's not seeing sugar or glucose. And if you increase the time that your body's not seeing sugar or glucose, you'll decrease the frequency or the levels of circulating insulin. That will naturally decrease the amount of insulin your body has to raise, and it will naturally increase the sensitivity of your body's tissues to insulin. So that's a natural way to do it. So if you say go to bed at 10 or 11, you don't eat your first meal of the day till 10 or 11 or even later, then you've gotten at least a good 10, sometimes even 15 hours of fasting. That works wonders. And if you only eat your dinner, say between 6 and 8 p.m., then during the day, you've also given yourself a good 6 hours of fasting where the glucose level's low, your insulin is able to stay low, and you're going to naturally increase the sensitivity of your body's tissues to insulin. If you do that for at least a 3 to 6 month time frame, you can bring that hemoglobin A1C, which is severe prediabetes or very early diabetes level of 6.8, 7.2, all the way down to 3.4, 3.8. I've seen it happen. And you can drop that fasting insulin level from 6 or 7 or higher all the way down to 2 or 3. It's mind-boggling. It's really, really shocking how you can naturally reverse severe prediabetes or very early diabetes by just not snacking, stretching out your meals. You don't even have to try to eat better. You can just decrease the time frame that your body is seeing sugar, and it works. Sorry. So as I said, I'm on a time limit for these presentations. I don't want to get cut off again. So I will speak more about insulin resistance and intermittent fasting and polycystic ovarian syndrome on another presentation. But this is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner, all things health related for women. Please press the subscribe or follow button, and post questions or ideas for topics that you'd like me to present. As long as it's health related for women, I'll be happy to present it. Please check out the YouTube channel, that's GYN Corner, our podcast on Anchor and Spotify, and after Friday, August 9th, will be on Apple iTunes. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. I'll be back Thursday.